All right, chapter 14. Was Solomon wise? By and by, when we got up, we turned over the truck. The gang had stole off of the wreck and found boots and blankets and clothes and all sorts of other things, and a lot of books and a spyglass and 3 boxes of cigars. We hadn't ever been this rich before in either of our lives. The cigars was prime. We laid off all the afternoon in the woods talking and me reading the books and having a general good time. I told Jim all about what happened inside the wreck and at the ferry boat, and I said these kinds of things was adventures. But he said he didn't want no more adventures. He said that when I went in to Texas and he crawled back to get on the raft and found her gone, he nearly died because he judged it was all up with him. Anyway, it could be fixed. For if he didn't get saved, he would get drowned, and if he did get saved, whoever saved him would send him back home so as to get the reward. And Miss Watson would sell him south. Sure, well, he was right. He was most always right. He had an uncommon level head for black slave. I read considerable to Jim about kings and dukes and earls and such, and how gaudy they dressed and how much style they put on, and called each other your majesty and your grace and your lordship and so on, instead of mister. And Jim's eyes bugged out and he was interested. He says, I didn't know there was so many on them. I ain't heard about none of them, scarcely, but old King Solomon, unless you counts them kings that's in a packer yards. How much do a king get? Get, I says, why, they get $1,000 a month if they want it. They can have just as much as they want. Everything belongs to them. Ain't that gay? And what they got to do, Huck? They don't do nothing. Why? How you talk? They just sit around. No, is that so? Of course it is. They just sit around, except maybe when there's a war, and then go to war. But other times they just lazy around and go hawking, just hawking, and it's shh. Did you hear a noise? We skipped out and looked, but it weren't nothing but the flutter of a steamboat's wheel way down coming around the point. So we come back. Yes, says I, and other times when things is dull, they fuss with the parliament. If everybody don't go just so he whacks their heads off. And if everybody don't go just so he whacks their heads off, but mostly they hang round the harem. Round the which? Harem. What's the harem? The place where he keeps his wives. Don't you know about the harem? Solomon had one. He had about 1 million wives. Why, yes, that's so. I don't forget. A harem's a boarding house, I reckon. Most likely they has rackety times in the nursery, and I reckon the wives quarrels considerable, and that increased the racket. Yet they say Solomon the wisest man that ever lived. I don't take no stock in that, because why? Would a wise man want to live in the midst or such a blamming all the time? Why would a wise man want to live in the midst or such a blamming all the time? No, indeed he wouldn't. A wise man would take in a biller factory, and then he could shut down the biller factory when he wants to rest. The biler factory, B-I-L-E-R. So he's saying, why would a man want a bunch of women? Because they're going to be fighting all the time. That's not wise. I don't care. Well, but he was the wisest man anyway, because the widow, she told me so her own self. I don't care what the widows say. He weren't no wise man, neither. He had some the dad fetchedis. He had some of the dad fetchedis? Dad dash F-E-T-C-H-E-D-E-S ways I ever see. Did you know about the child that he's going to chop into? Yes, the widow told me all about that. Talking about King David? Wow then, weren't that the beaten's notion in the world? You just take and look at it a minute. That's the stump. That's one of the women. He's you. That's the other one. I Solomon, and this your dollar bills the child. Both fun you claims it. What does I do? Does I shin around amongst the neighbors and find out which one of you the bill belong to, and hand over to the right one, all safe and sound, the way that anybody that had any gumption would? No, I take and whack the bill in two, and give half unto you, and half of the other to the other woman. That's the way Solomon was going to do with the child. Now I want to ask you, what's the use of that half a bill? Can't buy nothing with it. And what use is half a child? I wouldn't give a darn for 1 million of them. Well, I think there was like a story, a parable in the Bible where like something about, I can't remember, it's a good story, something about a child. And he wanted to see whose child it really was. So he was like, you know what? They're fighting over this child. I'm gonna cut it in half. But the one whose real child it was like, let her have it. The other one was like, it's like a story like she'd rather you not have the child, so she's gonna fight for it. That's a crazy story. She'd rather you have. She's more worried about how you feel when you just love the kid. So the king was gonna cut the baby in half. She's like, no. That's, first of all, that's stupid. Second of all, no one's gonna be able to have the kid. So that he's like, you know, I think you must be the real parent because you love the kid enough like that. This person is willing to see the kid chopped off just so that nobody has the kid. That doesn't really sound like a really healthy person. But hang it, Jim, you've clean missed the point. Blame it, you've missed it 1,000 miles. Who, me? Go along. Don't talk to me about your pints. I reckon I know sense when I sees it, and there ain't no sense in such doings as that. Dispute weren't about half a child. Dispute was about a whole child, and the man that think he can settle a dispute about a whole child with a half a child don't know enough to come in out in the rain. Don't talk to me about Solomon, Huck. I knows him by the back. But I tell you, you don't get the point. Blame the point. I reckon I knows what I knows. And mind you, the real point is down further, it's down deeper. It lays in the way Solomon was raised. You take a man that's got on you 1 or 2 children, is that man going to be wasteful of children? No, he ain't. He can't afford it. He know how to value them. But you take a man that's got about 5 million children running around the house, and it's difficult. He'll soon chop a child in 2 as a cat. There's plenty more. A child or 2, more or less, weren't no consequence to Solomon. Dad fetch him. I never seen such a N-word. If he got a notion in his head once, there weren't no getting it out again. He was the most down on Solomon of any N-word I ever seen. So I went to talking about other kings and let Solomon slide. I told about Louis XVI that got his head cut off in France a long time ago, about his little boy the Dolphin that would have been a king, but they took and shut him up in jail, and some say he died there. Poor little chap. But some says he got out and got away and come to America. That's good, but he'll be pooty lonesome. There ain't no kings here, is they, Huck? No. Then he can't get no situation. What are you going to do? Well, I don't know. Some of them gets on the police and some of them learns how to talk French. Why, Huck, don't the French people talk the same way we does? No, Jim, you couldn't understand a word they said, not a single word. Well, now, I'll be ding-busted. How did that come? I don't know, but it's so. I got some of their jabber out of a book. Suppose a man was to come to you and say, Parlez-vous Franzi, what do you think? I wouldn't think nothing. I'd take and bust him over the head, that is. If he weren't white, I would allow no N-word to call me that. I wouldn't allow no N-word to call me that. Shucks, it ain't calling you anything. It's only saying, do you know how to talk French? Well, then why can't he say that? Why he is saying that? That's a Frenchman way of saying it. Well, it's a blame ridiculous way, and I don't want hear no more about it. There ain't no sense in it. Looky here, Jim. Does a cat talk like we do? No, a cat don't. What does a cow? No, a cow don't neither. Does a cat talk like a cow or a cow talk like a cat? No, they don't. It's natural and right for them to talk different from each other, ain't it? Of course. And ain't it natural and right for a cat and a cow to talk different from us? Why, most surely it is. Well, then why ain't it natural and right for a Frenchman to talk different from us? You answer me that. Is a cat a man, Huck? No. Well, then there ain't no sense in a cat talking like a man. Is a cow a man? Or is a cow a cat? No, she ain't either of them. Well, then she ain't got no business to talk like either one or the other of them. Is a Frenchman a man? Yes. Well, then Dad blame it. Why don't he talk like a man? You answer me that. I see it were no use wasting words. You can't learn a N-word to argue, so I quit. That was the end of chapter 14.